Cracking.
Okay, but Aidan, thank you so much for making a little bit of time out of your Tuesday afternoon, your Tuesday lunchtime, to come onto the podcast and speak to myself about all things music. We're going to talk about everything, songwriting, recording, how you got into the whole music scene. But before we start with anything though, how are you actually doing?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, doing all the better for chatting to you. So, looking forward to it. So, just taking it easy in Glasgow this week. It's a bit of a rarity, so enjoying it.
Is it a wee bit of downtime at the minute?
Yeah, just a wee touch. We just finished doing some gigs with the Mànran guys. I've got a few weeks just to kind of take it easy, and then we're firing into a fairly lengthy tour with the Gnoss guys throughout May. So, it's nice to kind of get a bit of time to get the feet on the ground.
The wheels start to roll and it doesn't slow down for a long time.
Yeah, something like that. That's the aim anyway.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, we're going to talk about everything, but what I like to do with my guests is I go back to the very beginning. So where originally are you from?
Yeah, so I'm from Kirkwall and Orkney, up in the Northern Isles. So kind of grew up there, spent the first 18 years of my life there, and then moved to Glasgow 11 years ago, back in 2014.
Cool. And probably a silly question, were you exposed to music from a very young age? If so, where did that come from? Was it your parents? Was it siblings? Was it friends? And what type of music were you exposed to from a young age?
Yeah, I started my first instrument around 7 or 8. I was playing the piano. My auntie was the organ player for St Magnus Cathedral, the congregation there. So she kind of gave me piano lessons. And my granddad's very musical. He played in the Hamnavoe dance band when he was younger, and that was kind of one of the main instruments of kind of Orcadian kind of dance band music. So he played the bass guitar in that, but he played the electric guitar in a rock band as well back in the 60s and 70s. So he was. My folks always wonder why it skipped a generation, because mum and dad aren't musical at all, but it must have done. And really started getting into music seriously when I was in secondary school. There's kind of so much traditional music, particularly on the Isles, and that was what kind of got me into playing the acoustic guitar, and that's obviously the instrument that I fell in love with. So throughout secondary school there's so many great tutors, and there were so many great teachers in Orkney at the time, music teachers. So there's so many young folk to make music with that there's a big group of us that kind of formed a band when we were only 13 really, and we came down to Celtic Connections to play a concert. I think we were youngest ever Danny Kyle award winners or some rubbish like that. So there's just so many people in the same position as me at that age that playing folk music became quite a cool thing when we were teenagers. So
I mean, most people I've spoke to on the podcast, and it's regardless of where they are in the world, it's a very similar story. Most of them, a lot of them will get musical influences from their parents. Their parents will just be listening to music. But most of them will kind of discover their own musical taste, normally about 11 or 12 when they're kind of starting to go to high school, and you kind of get influenced by what your friends are listening to. And a lot of them, that's when they first pick up an instrument as well.
Totally, it's funny that comes to fruition.
Yeah, you were a little bit obviously younger when it came to the instrument, but am I right in saying obviously guitar and vocals is probably your main instruments at the moment?
Yeah, certainly. Like I said, I first started playing the piano, and then actually one of my passions when I was younger was kind of into jazz music, so I played the saxophone, and then after that played the acoustic guitar, and it was that just stuck, I think, because there was such a strong community of traditional musicians in Orkney that it meant I just had so many opportunities to play great concerts and watch great folk music at the Orkney Folk Festival, and that was what led me to study acoustic guitar and Scots song at the Conservatoire 2014 to 18, and formed a couple of bands, and that's kind of what I spend most of my time doing these days, playing the guitar and writing songs and singing for folk. So
you think we'll maybe see a saxophone solo in Mànran at some point?
Oh, certainly. It's got to be just around the corner. I can feel it getting closer every day,
But obviously you're playing the guitar. Did the guitar come before the singing?
Oh, they kind of came at the same time. Again, looking back when I was a kid, I must have just dabbled with a bit of everything because I sang I had like a wee rock band when I was a teenager. We made our own metal songs and sang in the pubs around Orkney. I think we were actually too young to drink in the pubs, but we had special permission from the council to play some shows. We were like 15, 16, playing in these bars. So I'd been singing for ages, and it was only as I got a bit older that I kind of discovered folk song, and they kind of appeared at the same time. So when I came to the uni, I was kind of obsessed with Chris Drever and Selfish 40 in the Chair and Brian Cromarty, his singing, and a lot of these other Orcadian kind of greats, So been singing for as long as I can remember, much to my parents' dismay when I was little, I'm sure. So
it's funny you say that, playing in pubs before you're of age.
Aye.
Obviously, you're through in Glasgow just now. I can remember Nice and Sleazy's on Sucky Hall Street.
Oh yeah.
I can remember playing a gig in the downstairs section of that, and the drummer in our band was under the age of 18, so we had to pull him through the bathroom window at the back of the venue for him to get, and then
amazing.
And then he had to climb back out of it again.
That's great. Yeah, sneaking past the bouncer, like that was great, Patter.
But
yeah, those days are hilarious, man. I mind kind of literally swinging from the rafters in one of the pubs in Orkney, the old Motor House, where we were playing our Christmas gig. I think every single one of us was 16, 17. We were just high off, what was it, orange and, fresh orange and lemonade. That was about the hardest thing that we could stomach at that age. So
yeah. But guitar and vocals, if you had to pick one, which one are you more confident with?
Honestly, for me, it's really peculiar. I say it's a real 50-50. I'd say it's a real 50-50. They're kind of...
Funny, I spoke to someone who plays acoustic guitar and sings, and they had said to me that they thought that when you're on stage playing, your mind is always focused. One of them's automatic, and your mind is always focused on the other one. But I play the pubs myself, do the guitar and vocals, and I would say probably initially it was the vocals I was thinking of because I was more confident on the guitar. But I would probably say at this stage it's more just autopilot for both of them. Is that
totally. Yeah, it's exactly the same for me. And I think I go with phases where. If I'm writing songs, and say I was doing a dance tour a couple of weeks ago where I was hired as the singer and guitarist in an Irish dance show. So I was playing around a tour of France for 2.5 weeks. We were playing in these arenas and stadiums, and the really important thing was delivering the songs. Obviously, I was doing more guitar. I was doing guitar for the whole show and singing maybe 2 or 3 numbers each half. But I felt like the songs were the really important thing to deliver. The guitar stuff was quite easy. There's nothing too challenging, and the songs I really wanted to make sure I nailed. So for that period of time, I was really actively focusing on, okay, well, I need to make sure I do the warm-ups, I need to make sure that I'm in the right zone, I need to make sure the delivery's right. Whereas sometimes I'll be at home and I'll be like, okay, I don't really want to think of myself as a singer for a couple of weeks, but I'll maybe pick up the guitar and kind of mess around, that kind of thing. So I think with me, it very much comes in phases. But yeah, when you're on stage, I always sing a lot better when I'm not thinking about it, which is terrible because when I want to sing well, I think about it. So should really get in the headspace where it's just all automatic. That's where the magic happens, I think.
I seen something recently, and I'm not a big Oasis fan, but I seen something, and it was Noel Gallagher talking, because he's obviously got his like his solo project, which is what he's known for probably the last 10 years or so now.
Yeah.
But he had said, and this was before they'd announced the Oasis reunion, that he had said that he did miss the thing with Oasis was that he didn't have to be the front man. He could simply just focus on playing the guitar and do a wee bit of backing singing and bits. But obviously in his current solo band, he's the main guy. He's got to do the singing, and he quite liked the idea of going back to Oasis because he could just simply stand and focus on playing the guitar rather than having to be the front man. They could leave that, so those duties are with his brother.
Yeah, I can connect with that actually, because that's very similar for my roles between Gnoss and Mànran, and I do find it a great relief when the Mànran tours roll around because you're part of a bigger whole. Obviously, you are in any band, but with Mànran, I can kind of take to the back of the stage, blend into the rhythm section, sing a wee bit, but it's Kim and Ewan that are delivering the songs and doing the patter. Whereas with Gnoss, there's just the four of us, so each one of us has to lift like more of a percentage of the show. And as the front man, there's the added responsibility of bantering with the crowd and delivering the songs. You know, if you kind of make a mistake or forget a verse, then that's the song kind of shot in the kneecap, you know.
I suppose it keeps it interesting for yourself jumping between both bands because you are taking on a different role within each band.
Totally. Well, like I said there, I think of myself when I was a teenager, I was playing saxophone in the KGS swing band. I was singing metal songs in my own thing. I was playing folk guitar in the trad band that I was playing with, and I was still probably doing my classical grades on the piano. Like these days, whenever I do anything for too long a time, my brain just gets disinterested. I just click off it. So I've got the Gnoss stuff where at the minute we're preparing for a big UK tour through May, and we also recorded 4 tracks in January that we're putting out through the course of this year. With the Mànran guys, we're finishing up an album, and we've just been doing bits and pieces of gigs. And then I also do kind of function work and things like that, just play for different events and play for different people. So if it was just one thing all the time, I think I might as well get an office job, you know.
Yeah. Give me a wee laugh then. What rock metal bands were you listening to back then? Did you still listen to them?
I was quite into like American post-hardcore. Like I listened to kind of like Let Live and Counterparts. I think they might be Canadian actually. There were some British guys like Quasi Sleeps, and I was a big Bring Me the Horizon fan back in the day, even from their Suicide Season album all the way up through whatever. So went to download in 2012 I think it was, 2012 or 2013, and saw a whole ton of, saw a lot of decent acts. But yeah, I was just listening to everything, you know, Killswitch Engage and what are those fellas from Australia? Parkway Drive, all that kind of stuff. And all the classic metal, of course, you know, Iron Maiden, Pantera, a bit of Slayer. So
it's funny, I'm a huge rock metal guy.
Oh yeah.
But my favourite band is The Doors, which is nothing at all.
Oh yeah, okay.
And obviously I love all the trad music as well. And everything in between. The beauty of music is you can get inspiration from absolutely everywhere.
Oh yeah, and you identify the same things that you enjoy, and you know, if you like the kind of heavy metal that I grew up with, that's why I connected to the music of Lancome, you know, because it's so raw and it's so archaic and it's so kind of like menacing. And then I got really into techno and electronic music when I moved to Glasgow, going to Sub Club and going to all those kind of things, and you see a lot of that reflected in the way that some people arrange their instrumental trad music. You know, if they let their ideas sit for long enough and they let things develop over a longer period of time, you know, the links are all there. It's all the same kind of emotion. So
I've read somewhere 2012, you kind of mentioned this slightly earlier, that you'd entered and won the Danny Kyle Award at the Celtic Connections.
Yeah.
Was that probably the starting point? What age were you first of all then?
So that was with a band with 6 of my close friends in Orkney when we were all, we were either 13 or 14, and we entered the Orkney Folk Festival's open stage as a band we were called Broken Strings at the time, which is a very strong band name. And because we won the open stage, it was Liz Clark that hosted that, and she hosts the Danny Kyle open stage, Danny Kyle Connection, so you got an automatic entry into one of those places which you normally have to audition for. So we came down the road and played at it was still in that central bit of the concert hall, and we won that. We were one of 6 finalists, I should say. And when you're a finalist, you get a support slot at the following Celtic Connections. So we journeyed down to Celtic Connections again the year after, and we opened for Foreman and a Dog at the Old Fruit Market, which is obviously one of Glasgow's most iconic venues. And there we were, I think we were age 14 when we were playing that, and just totally blew our minds. And that was really, like you said, that was the first step to kind of doing all this, because we had a slot off the back of that. We had a slot at the Edinburgh Fiddle Festival the year after, and it kept us busy up the road. We were playing at countless things and kind of fundraisers, and we always played at the Orkney Folk Festival. And then when I moved to Glasgow, my close friend Graham Rory, he also moved to Glasgow with me to study the same traditional music course at the Conservatoire. And when we were like, oh, well, we'll start a wee duo, we'll just play some music, we thought, well, it worked for us joining the Danny Kyle back then, so why don't we shoot Liz a message, see if we can audition. And we got in, and we kind of won that year again, so we became finalists in 2015 then. So I think that was 3 or 4 years after. I can't mind the exact dates. So yeah, it was largely like thanks to that competition. Funnily enough, that two of my projects kind of got a bit of steam. So yeah, I've got a lot to thank Liz and everybody for.
It sounds like 2012. Although you were young at the time, you were still at high school.
Aye.
But would I be right in saying, did that plant the seed in your mind that this is something you want to do, and ideally, if possible, do it as a profession, once you're older?
Yeah, definitely. It was around that time, we were getting into standard grades and hires, and everybody's choosing what they want to do. You're getting careers advice. And I was kind of saying to the folk, I was like, I think I've got a wee chance of getting into this conservatoire. There's this very specific niche degree, and if I could do that degree, then I would have 4 years to kind of build a band, make a name for myself. And by this time, I'd already kind of built two projects when I was in high school. The metal band that we just played locally, but we also had released some stuff, and we played up in Shetland for their heavy metal festival. So we'd had a bit of an idea of building an audience. And same way, this folk music thing, we'd recorded an album and we'd released that, and we'd gigged a bit off the mainland. And I kind of thought, well, if I've got 4 years of getting to know folk in Glasgow, that could be the thing to do. What I would have loved to do, what I would have absolutely loved to do, was find some sort of niche metal course and become a rock musician. That would have been the dream. That would have been. I remember watching all these videos of like tour diaries and buying like DVDs of these American bands that were playing Warped Tour and all this rubbish, and just fall in love with that. But I said, well, right, okay, if I want that life, probably the easiest way to do that is to become a traditional musician. And somehow it worked out. I was glamorizing all these touring bands that would sleep on floors and go and play a show and then sleep on their mate's floor in the next city. And I've done enough years of that I'm fed up with sleeping on people's floors now. So, it's come full circle.
I mean, I spoke with Keith Morrison recently.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Keith was on the podcast a few episodes ago. And I'd said to Keith, there's always been a trad music scene, but it really feels like in the last 10 years, especially 10, 15 years in Scotland, that it's really, there's been a lot of momentum behind it, and it's getting bigger and bigger. I would say it's probably bigger now than it's ever been.
Cool, yeah.
It's always been there, but it seems to be a lot more popular as well now to the masses. Do you see that from someone that's maybe in the inside part of the circle? And if so, why do you think that is?
Yeah, well, it must be quite cool to see that, because it's difficult for me to say, because I've only really been conscious of the scene as a whole for a decade, and for a lot of that I was a uni student, so really maybe the best part of 6 years or something I've been able to say that, okay, I've kind of see things taking shape. But I feel like there's been a few like watershed moments, like even like one band that I think is really good to kind of track with that is Talisk. Like when Talisk first formed, I think they might have won the Danny Kyle the same year when it was Mawson and Haley and Craig. I think they won the Danny Kyle the same year as Graham and I when we were a duo in Gnoss. And they started out by playing very acoustic, just, the three of them just playing trad tunes, and they're phenomenal, and that's why they got where they were. But they've gone from doing that to having this crazy light show and having like synth backing and Mawson triggering all these like electronic samples with his feet like live as he plays, and kind of going from this just acoustic project to this kind of this project that's got a lot of other influences, and playing like rock venues down in London, like O2 venues that traditionally have never hosted a Scottish trad act. And that's not even in Scotland. In Scotland you've got them playing the Barrowlands, and you've got Gary Innes from Mànran putting on the huge Huli events that he's putting on. You've got trad acts playing the Hydro. You've got Skipiness playing Edinburgh Castle. I feel like there's these real watershed moments. All the success that Scaryvore and Tidelines have achieved, and look at the rise of Trail West. I think they formed as a wedding band, and now they're selling out the Barrowlands 2 nights in a row within instant. It feels like for whatever reason there's project after project that's just achieving these things that I always say, especially being part of Mànran, you're kind of living other people's dreams. Playing shows that as a young guy thinking I was going to play trad music, I never thought I would play the Hydro. We just got back from playing Carnegie Hall, for God's sake. Like, that's not something that you ever expect to do as a Scottish traditional musician. But it's happening, you know. And it's funny because that's the kind of chat that, if you go all the way back to like Phil Cunningham's Silly Wizard, I always mind him. He was involved with the course that I was at uni, and he was saying back in the day, they felt the same way. They were playing their music and thinking, geez, where's this going to take us? We're playing gigs and doing shows that nobody in our genre has ever done before. And it feels like there's maybe a second wave of that happening now, and I'm just luckily in the midst of it.
I had Robert from Tidelines on just last week, and he was saying that they've got a UK tour that's about to kick off. I think it kicks off maybe summertime to the end of the year, but they've got obviously gigs in between then, because they've just got a new album that's came out. But their biggest gig to date in Glasgow getting arranged for a couple of months' time. When I spoke to Keith, obviously he's associated with Pete and Diesel.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, God, forgot about them.
Yeah, and they obviously, there's that new venue in Glasgow, the Emirates.
Aye.
Yeah, so I went to see them play, and it's it's almost like a big empty building that's just not getting used, and it's great because it's bigger than the Barrowlands, but it's not as big as the Hydro. It's that sort of
class. Yeah.
So I think it holds about 5,000, and it was obviously sold out, but there's standing, there's seating. It was great, and
nice, yeah.
You kind of think you wouldn't have thought. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's always like the popular music. But trad music is becoming just as big. I mean, it's selling out everywhere, and it's great to see. It's great to kind of see Scottish bands doing well.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. There really is. Like, you look at all corners of Scottish, particularly folk music, and within Scotland, it's really just had this huge surge. I mean, you've got even festivals like, the Orkney Folk Festival breaks its own ticket sale record every single year. You've got Sky Live, which I think it's 10 years of Sky Live, and that's mainly like folk younger than me that go to Sky Live, and you don't see that everywhere. Like, we do a lot of festivals in England, and there's really nowhere near as many young people going to those events, whereas in Scotland it's this real, like, look at Celtic Connections at the festival club, it's got this huge youth kind of following, as well as like that. It's just nice to see, like, all through the ages, this music being supported, and so many Scottish bands profiting off the back of it. There's all these followings, and everybody's just loving the music. The
great thing as well, though, is if you live in Scotland and you love these bands, you'll know yourself, if you love the American bands, especially if it's a really big band, you'll be lucky if you see them once every 5 years, just because of the tour cycle. If you love the Scottish bands, you could potentially see them 2 or 3 times each year if you want to go to those gigs, because they're obviously in Scotland.
Aye, yeah, and that's a good thing for us as well, because like, we'll look at when Gnoss, for instance, will say, okay, well, we're doing the Celtic Connection show in January, but why don't we put on another show September kind of time for when the uni students are coming back? That might and it works, there's always enough demand to even 2 shows in the same city, Yeah, it's cool.
I know that yourself and Kim both joined Mànran in 2019, so Mànran was already established.
Yeah.
So what made you want to join the band, and how did it come around?
Well, it's funny how it came around. I've always been a huge fan of Mànran ever since. I think they put out that first album when I was in high school, and that was something that we played a lot when we were in 5th year, 6th year, when we were drinking. We weren't drinking then, were we? But yeah. So what happened was, Craig Irvin, who's a good friend of mine and great guitarist, he was in Mànran for a number of years, and he decided to leave. I think he was kind of going on the pastures, and he lives in Australia at the minute. And when he left, he was singing and playing guitar in the band, and they were looking around names in Glasgow that might be a suitable fit. And I was pals with Ryan Murphy, who's been the pipe player in the band for years and years and years. He put my name forward, so turned up, had a wee jam with the guys, and Daddy spoke to me. He's like, right, how do you feel about joining the band on a full-time basis as the singer? Kind of like you were saying, it would be a slightly different role from what I eventually joined the band in. He was saying, how would you feel being the front man, delivering the songs, that kind of thing. But obviously the catch for that would be I would have to be available for 100% of the shows just all the time. And at the time I was I put a good few years into Gnoss. I think we were 5 years down the line, and we were starting to see some exciting wee signs. I think we put out one album that we were quite proud of, and I really didn't want to not be able to put the same energy into that project. So I was kind of gutted, but I had to decline, and I had really agonised over that decision. But I felt like it was the right thing to do. And what came off the back of that was the band went back to the drawing board, and they were like, well, why don't we split the roles? Might mean a bit more hassle for us at the start, but they felt it was the right thing to do. So they brought on Kim as the vocalist and myself as the guitar player. And ever since then, it's just worked absolutely perfectly. It's been totally magic. It's meant that Kim's one of the best singers I've ever worked with, and just totally enchants crowds, and means that I get to really enjoy the role that I have, and also put as much dedication and as much love into Gnoss as I do Mànran, which is really incredible that it's worked out that way for me. And I greatly appreciate all the members of all the bands for making it work out for me, because it's meant that I just get to do these two incredible projects and give them both a lot of love. So
I had Ewan on the podcast.
Oh yeah.
A couple of months ago, and I did say to him, it's a I don't know if brave's the word or interesting, but it's an interesting move to make. The band was established, the band was successful, winning awards, touring around the world, but to go in a completely different direction with bringing Kim in as the singer, but I think that probably elevated the band. And it was the right decision. It was definitely the decision to make, bringing yourself and Kim in. But, it was a brave decision. There's a lot of bands who wouldn't make that big leap by doing that.
Totally, it was definitely a gamble from the guys, and I'll always respect them for it, because it wasn't, I can't imagine it would have been the easy thing to do. But whenever we speak about it, they said that it just seemed so right. When the decision was floated, they just thought, oh, that is absolutely, like, that's a wee curveball. But I think that could work really well. And I guess it was a bit of a gamble. It took a wee bit of time to land. And the old Mànran material still goes down an absolute storm. It's a total fan favourite. It still does really well on streaming. But the audience, particularly online, has really grown, like, hugely over the past 5 years. That the streaming numbers have absolutely shot up, no small part thanks to these huge gigs that Gary's putting on, and our previous two singles, which again has been a gamble from the seven of us. We're kind of releasing this new album this year where the songwriting's kind of taken a bit of a left turn, and the material we're experimenting with some new sounds, but getting those on the Radio 2 playlist has been really exciting. And it feels like, you're right, it was an absolute roll of the dice, but feels like it's worked out somehow. It could have just fallen flat on its arse, and that would have been embarrassing. Being the nail in the coffin for Mànran would have been not a very good thing to add to my CV. So
yeah, with yourself and Kim, the musical talent was there. It was just the band going in I don't even know if it's a different direction. I kind of feel like it just moved, the band went up a level. In a good way.
Well, that's a good review, because like I said, I guess it only had one of two ways to go, and it could have gone down a level, and that would have been good for me.
the right time, the right place, everything aligned perfectly, and the way it is just now is the way it was meant to be. Maybe that's the way to look at it.
And it's great, and especially where over the past few years we've got our new bass player Marcus Cordick involved, and he's been great he brings his like real wealth of like pop and rock experience into the band, and a kind of sideways look at arranging trad music. And it feels like at the minute the way that we're all working together musically is just it's so refreshing and so exciting. It's really fun to write with Kim, and it's fun to arrange music together, and we've got that back catalogue to kind of work from for the gigs, and we can float new ideas, and feels like it's a really freeing way of making music, and having an audience there that's looking forward to what we're doing. It feels like there's no pressure. It just feels exciting to be able to put the stuff out,
So Aidan, for yourself, for both bands, and it might differ so you can let me know if that's the case. But what is your songwriting process? Do you have a process? For example, will you come up with a melody first? Do the lyrics come last? Do you let someone else do the lyrics? What is your songwriting process?
Yeah, I'm definitely more a lyrics guy. I think if I was to have blind spots, it would be when it comes to melody. But I often, most of the time, the way that songs come to me is I'll just be floating along, just living my life, and on like a sunny Saturday afternoon, a wee idea will come to me, and I'll kind of piece it together and see what happens. Melodies will just kind of suggest themselves to me, and based on the content of the song, what the song's about, I'll try and figure out, could this be a Mànran? Could this be a Gnoss number? How personal is the song? Is this something that I want to keep to see if I eventually want to do something with it myself? Is it something that I see that's a bit too intimate for sharing with any of the bands? Is it something that I need a bit of help with? In which case I'll maybe take it to Kim and be like, this could be a Mànran number, you know? Yep. But I feel like songs just kind of appear, and then I start the writing process, and based on how that writing process goes, I'll kind of put it to either find its destination. Then, I mean, obviously there's exceptions to the rule. Maybe I'll have a chord progression that I really like, or maybe I'll have like a harmonic interval that I think is kind of bonny and what I see, like get a melody first. But in general, I've got kind of loads of like notes of unfinished songs, or songs that just kind of come to me and being like, it also does depend on what each project is doing. So at the minute, I'm really determined to get some new Gnoss material on the go. So when ideas are coming to me in songwriting, I'm thinking, okay, well, let's be real here. Gnoss are in need of some new songs, so let's see if we can work it in this direction. So yeah,
it's funny. My dad, he didn't play any instruments with that, but he loved his music. It used to always fascinate him. He says, I don't understand how you can write a song from nothing. He's saying, he's like, I could spend my whole life and never do it. And I tried to explain to him, your mind can be empty for ages, and you can be driving, you can have the radio on, and there might be just one little line in someone else's song that sparks something in your mind that inspires you to write a whole new song, and it's not even based upon that lyric or that song. It doesn't sound like it, but there's something in your mind, or it might be a line in a book or something that you've read, heard in a film or that. But then, at the same time, though, he was an artist. He would paint, and I'm like, well, it's just a blank canvas. And if I come back in a month's time, you could have an entire landscape created from your mind. It's the same thing, only it's music.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I've often feel like kind of an antenna kind of getting like tuned to things like radio waves that you don't know exactly where they're coming from. And it is funny that.
The most frustrating part is that, I mean, there'll be times, and it'll maybe be similar to yourself, where I can go and write a song, a basic song, the skeleton of a song in 10 minutes, but then there's other songs that it can take a while to come together, and you sometimes wish it was just as easy as those 10-minute songs that come together, but it doesn't always like that, and there's no sort of reason why it happens. It's just, it might be the way you're feeling that day, it might be what it is that inspires. There's no right or wrong, but it's interesting.
Yeah, totally. It's weird because sometimes the songs that come the easiest are the ones that you're proudest of, and you don't know. I've never really been able to figure out. It's like, oh right, okay, well, if I had really sat a year ago and tried to write that song, would I have been able to, or did I have to wait for the song to want to appear almost? Do you know what I mean? I feel like the songs just come at the time that they're ready to come, which gives them their own. Well, you almost speak about them as if they've got their own life, they've got like a mind of their own. And you get a bit happy when you start talking in that direction. But it feels kind of true. I don't know. It's more like being struck by the inspiration in the moment than finally having a big breakthrough or something.
Yeah. And again, well, another sort of question with regard to both bands, it might differ again, but how do you like to record? So do you record live in the studio? Do the rhythm section record live, or do you start with the drums and layer everything on top, or is it different for both bands?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're actually at the minute, just by complete coincidence, doing two very different approaches with both projects I'm in. With and I think the music's going to sound quite different at the end, which is kind of, again, it's fun for me to experiment with because I'm like stuck right in the middle of it. So with the Mànran project, we're focusing on putting out this really kind of like sheen, like kind of polished, like almost like pop, kind of folk pop kind of stuff, pop rock kind of stuff. So we're recording everything in complete isolation, doing the kind of traditional style of like layering the rhythm section up and then layering the rest of the stuff up and then having the vocals on top once everything's down to kind of give Kim the most like inspiration, the most kind of feeling of like a live band. We're doing that with Ross Hamilton out in his studio in Paisley. He's worked with a lot of pop music guys, does a lot of work for film and like TV, like a lot of Netflix contracts. It's very very polished, very very shiny sounding kind of stuff. Whereas with the Gnoss guys, we had done that for a couple of albums and we were thinking, well, we really enjoy the sound of those recordings and we really like them, but it sounds quite different to our live show. Like our live show and our albums were two different beasts. So we thought maybe for this new music we could try and align those a little more. So we found Castle Sound Studios was recommended to us. It's a place out in I think it's out near Peebles. It's just outside
right.
Edinburgh.
Okay.
And it's got a control room that's big enough so that the four of us can record our core layers together. So the sounds themselves are isolated, but we've got a line of sight through like the four separate booths. So we record acoustic guitar, baran, fiddle, and flute together, for example. So the core of the instrumental numbers are there at that kind of same time, and it's created this quite organic, quite natural sounding stuff. You know, it's still got the polish of being isolated, but there's a little bit of raw energy that I think maybe we haven't managed to capture before for whatever.
Yeah, there's a different feel to it. I was speaking with a band from Australia, and a rock band, and they were based. They moved from Australia to LA. They supported Slash and all these, like big names, and they've got some great albums, but they said they never captured on an album what they do. Like when they do play live, it's like them plus 100%. It's just there's a energy when they play live that they struggle to capture in the studio, and I think a lot of bands have a similar issue. And the recordings sound brilliant, but when you go and see them live, you go, that was outstanding.
Totally. And I mean, it's probably good that is the reason. Otherwise, nobody would go and see anyone live. You know? It's good that you get an extra sound out of it. But even in the studio, they are. I think I might have misspoken and got the engineers. It's Ross Hamilton that we're recording the Mànran stuff with, and it's Stuart that works at Castle Sound. But when we were recording with Stuart, we were playing this track. It's kind of 4 minutes long, and in the final minute of the track, we repeat the B part at the end, and you can actually hear on the recording that when we play that final B part, we finally get that extra bit for that final 20 seconds of the track. We managed to find that playing live thing. And I think we only managed to do that because we were playing together and you settle into it and you finally kind of find that groove. But I was laughing because I was like, why can't we just do that at the start of the track? Like, you know what I mean? But it's a different environment, isn't it? Because you're playing live and you've got all these people watching you and maybe cheering you on and maybe kind of standing up, maybe clapping. And then you go into the studio and it's like 10:30 a.m. on a Tuesday and you've just driven Glasgow to Edinburgh in rush hour and like, do you know what I mean? You're eating a banana and then you set it down and do the take. Like it's like just it's always more zen. Like I feel like you should almost like trick the adrenaline or something, like do like a Zumba class or like do some crazy like tribal breathing before you go in to do the take, you know?
It's weird that, again, there's no right or wrong. I can see the advantages of doing it both ways.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
But you've kind of touched on it a wee bit, but we're relatively still early in 2025. So what is the plans for yourself for the remainder of the year?
So for the remainder of the year, us kind of dueling between the two projects, we've got a big UK tour with Gnoss kicking off at the end of this month and running all the way through May, and finishing up, we're actually on that Tidelines gig that you mentioned. That's our final gig of the tour. We're playing a short set opening for the Tidelines guys at Rushmore Park. So yeah, if there's anybody interested in the Gnoss stuff, check out the website. All the dates are on tour now. And then over the summer, we're kind of swapping between festival appearances through June, July and August. So whether it's the Gnoss guys or whether it's the Mànran guys. And then with Mànran, our festival season ends at Lochaber Live, which is Gary's festival, his hometown festival that he set up. And by the time Lochaber Live is there, we should, God willing, have a new Mànran record out. I think we're putting a new Mànran record out over the summer, and we're also putting out some new Gnoss singles over the summer. So by the time the summer finishes, we should have a body of Mànran work and at least 2 singles from Gnoss, which is exciting because we haven't put out music with any project since 2023 at the very earliest, but I think since Mànran it might have been 2021. It's been quite a while, so yeah, it feels really good to finally have some stuff kind of out in the world, you know.
Aidan, you're going to be busy.
Yeah, it's going to be hellish. Actually, it's going to be. I've got a couple of weeks in July which are looking a wee bit more chill, so that'll be a nice little pocket. But certainly this next while, even this Gnoss tour would be crazy. But I do a lot of the social media and kind of release planning and stuff, so I've got to keep the eye on the ball for getting the Mànran single out, getting the Gnoss single out. So this next 6 weeks in particular is possibly going to kill me. So I'm going to look forward to see that end of September. Love festival season, but end of September, that middle, like after Lochaber Live, I'm just going to breathe a huge sigh of relief and just, I don't know what I'm going to do. Become a monk or take up like deep sea diving or something. I don't know, something.
Well, Aidan, we've obviously been quite technical for any musicians that are watching. The last question, just for any technical people, for the guitarists as well. What's your guitar setup?
Oh yeah, so I just absolutely love standard tuning. So like a guitar setup, I play in between standard and drop D. I've got my Martin J40, which I bought 8 years ago now. It's the only guitar I play actually, so it's just really nice and broken in. I've got a LR Bags pickup. I'm just upgrading to the LR Bags. I think it's called the Hi-Fi Duet pickup system, which I'm getting sent over from their wee company in California, but their stuff's just incredible for acoustic instruments. LR Bag pickup, and I also run a little octave setup for the Gnoss gig. So we have 2 bullet pickups that run on the lower 2 strings, the E and the A string. Right. And then I've got a separate out. So I've got 2 outs, a jack out for my LR Bags pickup, which goes into the LR Bags DI after a couple of effects pedals for the Mànran kit. And then for the Gnoss kit, I also have this separate jack cable, which runs into a mute pedal, the octave pedal, the bass EQ, and then a bass DI. So that kind of tracks what I'm doing on the lower 2 strings, so I can bring that in and out. Apart from that, I occasionally play in some silly tuning. So got a tuning that's D-A-D-G-A-E. So it's kind of like DAD-GAD, but it's got an open A5 at the top instead of an open D5. So you can play all these nice shapes on the low strings, and if you're playing in A major or A minor, you know, you've got that kind of drone happening up there. And recently recorded a lot of this new Gnoss material using tuning that I borrowed from Adrian Lenker. She's a singer-songwriter from America that plays in Big Thief, and she plays in double drop D a lot. So it's kind of an easy way to go to imitate that DAD-GAD sound, because you only need to quickly drop the 2 E's and then you're there. So I kind of like choose these tunings based on if I could possibly navigate to them in a live setup. So the Gnoss gig is getting kind of crazy. Luckily we yap for way too long in between each set, but I'll do kind of standard drop D, double drop D, that DAD-GAD tuning, back to standard drop D, and just kind of like flirt with each one a little bit. So
I think you're going to need to maybe get another few guitars and just have someone keep hand.
That'd be the rock and roll. Well, when we did the Hydro last year, and normally the Mànran set works really, really well for me with all the tuning changes, but we realised that way too late. We kind of had all the wheels in motion, that we'd chosen a guitar set, which we choose a set which was just an absolute pain in the ass for me as a guitarist. It was like capo 5 standard, open, drop D, capo 3 with an extra thing, and I was like, oh my god, like, because it's so slick that I genuinely got in touch with somebody about the prospect of having a guitar tech and having somebody pass me a second guitar for some of these songs, because the change was so, I was jumping up the neck and changing what the strings were tuned to at the same time. But I just couldn't stomach it. It just felt too rock star. I just couldn't do it. So I was like, nah, I'll sort it myself. And it was grand. It was fine. But yeah, you're maybe right. Maybe one day. I just don't know. I don't know if I'm ever going to be okay with that. Maybe, I don't know. You'll get back to me in a couple of years and I'll be like kind of embarrassedly accepting my guitar tech. So.
You don't want all of Mànran ready to start the song and everyone turns and looks at you and you're still tuning your guitar.
I know, yeah. Or like I've got the guitar off me and I'm passing it to somebody else. And
yeah, but before we finish up, I like to ask some fun questions.
Oh yeah, go for it.
End the interview. And so I'll just ask them, you tell me whatever pops into your mind, okay? So
yeah, okay, it's like a Rorschach test.
Yeah. Imagine you could go back in time anywhere in the world, big gig, small gig. I'll let you choose which one. What's the one concert that you wish that you could have attended?
The one concert you wish you could have attended. You know what I would have maybe done? I maybe would have gone back to like Seattle in the 90s and seen like Alice in Chains, and seen Nirvana, like seen like all those proper grunge bands before all their frontmen expired. I think that would be something really cool. Like as a teenager, I was so into Alice in Chains' Dirt. That's like one of my favorite albums of all time, and I would love to see that delivered. I think that would be rocking.
I'm a Pearl Jam man, so
I'll yeah. Hey, well, that'd be good as well.
What about a similar question? If you could go back in time and attend one of your own gigs as a spectator, is there one that stands out that you think would maybe be quite interesting?
God, I wouldn't waste my time doing that if I had time travel. No, maybe the gig at the weekend, maybe the Carnegie Hall. If it wasn't the Carnegie Hall, it would be that very first gig at the Hydro, because those are just gigs that, from an on-stage perspective, you couldn't believe that you were there. And it felt like the audience couldn't really believe that they were seeing you there either. It was just this huge, everybody on stage and off stage was just so excited about it happening that that would have been cool to see. What if you
could be like a fly in the wall? If you could go into a recording studio and witness a band record a song, what song do you think you'd like to see?
Oh, a band record a song. Would it have to be like one of the rock great, like Skinner, Freebird, or like?
Yeah,
I'm really into the Talking Heads at the minute, and they're so weird that I think that would be quite cool. Yeah. But I don't know, man. That is a tricky question. Way back in the day, like you'd have to go to like Abbey Road for the Beatles or something like. Yes, that would be cool. That would be cool.
Does a perfect album from start to finish exist for yourself?
Start to finish. Again, some of my favourite albums of all time, like Abbey Road, The Beatles, Dirt, Alice in Chains. I skip a few tracks. I do. I don't know if a perfect. You'll have to come back to me. What about you? Would you say that one exists? Because I'm a sucker. Yeah. My favourite album. Spotify's made it terrible for me because you can just hide the tracks you don't like. You put the album on, you're like, this album's amazing. My God, what an album! But you've hidden like 3 stinkers.
There's a few that pop into mind, and they're all so unbelievably different from each other.
Aye.
The Doors' LA Woman.
Right, aye.
I think is an unbelievably outstanding album, especially since it's the band live in the rehearsal room.
Aye. Oh, wow.
I think that's a great album. Master of Puppets by Metallica.
Strong.
Is a great album. There's a folk musician, Nick Drake. Don't know if you've heard.
Oh yeah, of course.
He's got one called Pink Moon. His third album, him and an acoustic guitar, is a great album. Machine Head. There's a
okay, cool. Yeah. You're getting it.
Album. First album, On My Eyes, is just perfect. It's brilliant.
I mentioned Adrian Lenker earlier, and her 2020 release called Songs. That's very close to a perfect album for me. That's some of my favourite songwriting, really unbelievable guitar playing, it was just her tracking what she could in a wee cabin in lockdown, and that's pretty close. I think there's maybe one song that I think is a bit of a stinker, or she does like one of those crazy, like the final track is like 20 minutes long. Do you know what I mean? But that's pretty close.
Here's a question that I asked your bandmate Ewan from Mànran.
Oh yeah.
It's going to potentially put someone in Mànran in a bad light, so I'm going to ask you the same question and I'll get your answer. So imagine you've got a dead body in the boot of your car. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. You need help of disposing of this body, no questions asked. Which member of Mànran are you calling for help and why?
Straight away, I think it would be Ryan. I think it would be Ryan Murphy. I think he's got the blind-sighted, adventurous spirit to just take that on. I think he's the kind of guy that you could not that you could rely on for everything, but I think if you're in that kind of scenario, not that I'm saying he knows what to do, mind you. I think he'd be up for sharing in the disaster with you. Is what I'm saying.
So this is worrying because Ryan's name was also mentioned by you, and so there's something dodgy about Ryan.
Listen, man.
There's now 2 band members would call Ryan at 4 in the morning.
Yeah, he's a fun-loving criminal, you know.
So I know you're a bit of a gamer.
Yes, actually, yeah. How did you know that?
Here's a question for you. Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead Redemption? Which one is it?
See, right, okay, you know what's crazy, right? It would be Red Dead Redemption, but in the category of games that I want to play. I've actually never played GTA 5 or Red Dead. For whatever reason, the Rockstar games, like, they've never really, like, I'm more into, like, fantasy games and, like, first-person shooters. Spend a lot of time playing first-person shooters, so the third-person thing. But Red Dead has been on my list for a long time because a lot of my friends that I speak to about video games, like actually me and Mark Scobie, who's drums in Mànran, and Marcus Cordick, who's based in Mànran, we all play a lot of video games, and Red Dead is Mark's favourite game of all time. And I was actually just playing some Apex Legends there because I've got this week off. Me and the 2 boys from Morning that play that together, one of them is constantly playing Red Dead. I think you can do all these hunting things and he's just constantly like tracking and stuff.
You need to go and get yourself Red Dead Redemption 2. It is.
My God.
It's been out for years now, but it is still such a good. It's crazy the amount of things you can do in it. It's crazy. You'd love it.
That's probably the one sentence I've heard the most in my whole life. You need to play Red Dead Redemption 2.
That's fine. And last question for yourself. Mount Rushmore, for today at least, who is the 4 bands or musicians that are just perfection for yourself?
That are just perfection for myself. Well, a wee Scottish shout out, I'm going to put Bravah on one of them. I've just absolutely loved everything they've done over the past, like, 3 records longer, and yeah, I just always look forward to release of theirs. Would put them on it. I would, let's skip genres, let's keep things interesting. No, I'll put kind of adjacent, I'll put Big Thief on there.
Right.
Adrian Lenker, she's my favourite songwriter of all time, and the music that they make together I find is just really inspiring, really interesting. Bands or musicians that are just perfection. Let's put the Talking Heads there as well. Yeah. Again, really inspiring, like, way of approaching music, really diverse, like, sound pool, really crazy. And I'm going to put his 4th. Well, we've got new music coming out, so we'll put Gnoss on the 4th one. Get a bit of promo there.
Hey, that's fine. What I'll do is I'll be putting the link for both bands' social media in the description. So anybody that's watching want to give both bands a follow, they can find out all about new releases that are coming out, tour dates, merchandise, all the good stuff that goes along with being in a band. Give you guys a follow. Come along to the gigs, support you. But I do wish you all the continued success, Aidan, in the future with both bands. And thank you for coming on the podcast and answering all my silly questions.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Cheers, man.
Cheers, pal.